Welcome back for part 3 of the Walthers pump jack kit. We're going to get the final parts installed onto the pump jack itself, get the wiring completed, and get that installed onto the layout. It's been now about 2 weeks since I've talked to Walthers, and they have not contacted me back yet, so I'm not quite sure if they have any words of wisdom for me. So anyway, let's get started and finish this project up. I made a little stand here so I could sit the pump jack in while I work on it. Wouldn't keep falling over. I guess my next step is to attack the fencing. It's going to be a little delicate before I do the final assembly of the walking beam and install the gearbox. Well, I already had scenery on, so I used the second platform that I had out of the other kit and marked the area that I wanted to install that. And I've been cleaning that area up, and now I've got to cut down a hole down through. It's 1 inch foam, and then I have about a ½ inch of plywood underneath. So, okay, I've made the access hole here. It's not very pretty, but trying to get down through the foam and everything, I've got to do just a little bit of touch-up to make that work. And I tell you what, a great tool for doing that was this, whatever you call this device, but it sure made easy work out of it. This way I like to do my wiring on anything that I need to disconnect quickly. I use these small plugs. You can get them off of eBay. And quick disconnect. It's a nice way to do the install. So let's get this part hooked up to the power supply. Here we have it hooked up to the voltage converter. I've actually got this attached to a 5-volt supply. I had that very close to the area I was installing this in, so we put it on that and converting the voltage down to 2.5. I started working on the fencing, and they give you this lace material here for the chain link. I used some aluminum in my airbrush paint and tried to darken this up a little bit, give it a little more definition. They do provide 2 ways to do the fencing. One is giving you a plastic skeleton, and the other way is to give you fence posts, and then you use the wire that they supply in the kit to put around that. I decided to just go with the plastic skeleton that they have. Looked a little bit easier, and also real quick on that, I'd used a couple pieces of tape to try to hold it down. Very low air pressure, and I was managed to spray both sides out. So now we'll go to attaching the, I'm going to attach the netting to the skeleton fence before installing it on the pump jack. Okay, I'm attempting to attach the netting here, the chain link, to the fence skeleton, I'll call it. I've slid that underneath the netting, and using a real fine piece of styrene. I tried a toothpick. The toothpick kind of wants to soak up the super glue, but putting a small dab until I can get it tacked down, and then once I do that, I'll cut the pieces out and probably go back and touch up a little bit more of the super glue. Okay, here are the fence rails glued to the mesh, and then I trimmed them. I left a little bit on the top, and of course the bottom rail I centered that up with so the bottom of the mesh should be right even with that rail. I left a little bit extra on the end so I could tack that onto the next fence post that it's going to connect to. Here I have started with installing one on the foundation, and we'll get the next ones on here. Okay, we've got the fencing up. The gate is installed. That's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to put it on the layout, make sure the motor runs okay before I do the final assembly on it. The other one I noticed with doing the fence post, if you get too much glue on there, it leaves shiny spots around. So use it sparingly. I put just a dab on the bottom of the fence post and then applied those into the holes in the foundation. Next, I took the wire that they provided and placed the end on there. It's where the thread is going to attach to. Now the instructions call out to actually tie a knot on each end of this rod. There's a little nub sticking out there, and put a dab of CA glue with a loop on it, and that loop is going to go and hook on the back here of the walking beam. I tried hooking a loop on there, and it's just so small. HO you'd have probably been fine, but N gauge you're not going to get that on there. So I'll ask, should we follow the instructions? I'll ask my advisor here. Okay. My intention is to determine the length of thread I need to make a loop on it and hook the loop on this end, bringing up each side and attaching it up here, the end of the threads up on top of the walking beam here. And once I get that loop correct, I can put this in there and attach it on, just loop it on here, pull it down so that they're even, and I'll put a dab of CA glue down here on this one. Okay, this is my second attempt. I actually cut the piece of thread in half, which is it makes it mine came out to 2¼ inches. I could make it 2½. I think would also work. Do you only get one attempt at it then? My first attempt was laying it behind the back of this horse head or whatever it is, and it just didn't work. I couldn't get it to lay flat, so I removed that. Next one, I just took little bit of CA glue on the end of the thread, laid it on the very back edge here to get this to lay flat. Did one side, then did the other one, and we will get the piece of rod next so I can find the center of this and get that attached on there, and then we'll do the final assembly on the pump jack. I've run into one small problem that I've noticed after I got everything together. The walking beam here is slightly tilted, and that's due to part number 4. When I put that on, I didn't get it flush, square to that beam. So when you glue that, make sure that it's flush on there and that beam is not going to tilt on you. Fortunately, I have a second kit that I'm putting together that walking beam now, and I'll put it on here to correct the problem. We have the pump jack installed on the layout, and it's running right at about 2½ volts. The walking beam has been fixed. Watch when you put that the pivot point on that. The beam is a little bit tapered on the bottom edge there, and just make sure you get that sitting correctly on the bottom of that when you glue that on. Also, the H-arm in the back connected to the weights on the motor. Those are a little bit too long. You're going to have to trim those down. So, looks good. I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm going to build the next one and make it just static, and then we'll look for another project. Okay, that's going to wrap up this episode. Last couple comments. I will probably say that this kit has been one of the more challenging ones that I've done. It is fragile. Anytime I want to move it around, it seems like either the ladder comes off or the fencing kind of dislodges, and I have to re-glue that, so just be careful with it. Walthers has never gotten back to me on this project, so I guess they're not worried about it, but hopefully some of the things that I provided will help you build this kit if you're going to do that. So once again, I thank you very much for watching. Everybody have a great day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.